Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from what is good wine on a first date, parenting tips, and not being afraid to ask for help. Here's your host, who was told by a guest that he was a podcast influencer. Well, you know the truth about that statement. Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another Oh, hold on, sorry. Alexa, pause, please. Don't want to get sued for playing music that I don't have a license for. What I say? I don't remember what I said. Hey, welcome to the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. How are you doing? And I mean that sincerely. I mean that from the heart. I mean that from my soul. How are you doing? I'd give you a hug. You know what? Screw this quarantine crap and social distancing. I'm sorry. I'm a hugger. I'd give you a bro handshake if you're a guy. Hey, if you're a girl, maybe I'll give you one of those bro handshakes as well. But I care. I really do, because like many of you, grounded. But I do want to mention, and I'm not bragging. This is, I had to get out of the house yesterday. I'm extremely sunburnt because of it. But I ended up doing close to 19 miles walking between two walks. The first walk was 12 miles, just over 12 miles. And then my wife Ann came home and we went for another walk. Yep. I was a walking fool. I should have just kept walking. Just should have kept walking and going. I don't know where I'd go. I just don't know. I don't know. Hey, on this podcast, known as Blending the Family, did I mention I'm the host, Tommy Maloney? Did I mention that? On this episode of the podcast, we have the founder, the creator of the app, Fayr. I'm going to also tell you right now, and you'll hear it again during this episode, because I love you, and I'm sending you a hug right now, you are getting a discount, 20% off with this app. You sign up the month of May. So if you're listening to this, I don't know, January of 2028, if I'm still around doing this podcast, you never know. Anywho, 20% off discount. You have to use the code BLENDING, BLENDING. No, it's not case sensitive. All right, so blending, 20% off. So cool. Michael Daniels, again, the founder, creator of Fayr app. And I'm just going to mention two words. Gwyneth Paltrow. And I'm going to hold that right there. All right, so how are you doing? You doing good? Are you able to get outside? Are you able to, learn more about the people in your house? I learned something this week. The truth came out. My wife wants me back out on the road working that dreaded day job, and I don't want to. I don't want to go back. I like hanging here in the house with you. I do. I love it. So that's what I learned this week. But at the same time, I am going to tell you, I'm a little late on TV shows. I remember when Friends first came out, and I happened to be living, I think I was living in the Nashville area, and I didn't have cable, so I wasn't really into Friends, so I didn't really know about it. And then later, I don't know, once I got to an apartment that had cable, that I paid for cable, I should say, then I started watching Friends and have the DVDs of, I think it's season 1. But The Good Place, with I'm blanking. I'm blanking. I know Ted Danson's in it, and the girl from Frozen. Hold on, let's do this. Let's do this. Google. Where's my little microphone? There it is. Oh, great. The settings aren't turned on for. Oh, how about this? Let's do this. Alexa, who's in the TV show The Good Place?
The cast of The Good Place includes Kristen Bell,
Kristen
William
Bell.
Jackson Harper, Jamila Jamil, Darcy Carden, Manny Jacinto, Ted Danson, and Mark Evan Jackson.
There you go. The Good Place. Kristen Bell, Ted Danson, and the rest that Alexa just said. And a good friend of mine named Tracy, she recommended it, and we splurged. We bought a new TV for the house. My wife has been complaining because she really wanted to make the downstairs a family entertainment or an entertainment type place, and we haven't done that. And so we went out to the big club and bought a TV. Got a great deal on it. Extremely great deal. For a 55-inch, I was like, wow, might as well buy 3. Just kidding. Bought 1. And so one of the... wasn't the first night, but it was when was it? It was a Saturday night, just last Saturday, and we end up binge watching, and I hate to use that word because I never thought I'd do it, but I did it. We binge watched the first season, and it's almost 1:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did that, but it was well worth it. So we're in season 2 right now. I think by the next couple days, depending on this coming weekend is a kids. Well, it's Mother's Day week. Hey, happy Mother's Day to my mom. Happy Mother's Day. And to you know what? How about this? To you dads that have had to play that role of moms, happy Mother's Day to Mr. Moms. How's that? And where was I? An email just flashed through my computer net. Mr. Mom, happy Mother's Day. So normally it's a kids week. It would be a kids weekend, but my son, the boy, the dude, will be spending the weekend with his mom, and we'll have my wife's girls. The bonus daughters will be here. So I don't know if be watching The Good Place tonight. Definitely tonight. And I don't know if we'll finish season 2 tonight. But anyway, oh my gosh, what a great... The writing, I'll tell you. You have to have, in my opinion, you have to have the writing ahead of who's going to be acting. And then when you bring in the acting, oh my gosh, that makes a show, a movie that much better. I just love it. I'm addicted to that show now. But the thing is, I don't have Netflix on my phone, nor do I want it, because I would be one of those people sitting around all day watching it when I should be doing other things. So the wife has the Netflix account on her phone, and that keeps me honest to make sure that I don't skip ahead, because I know there are couples that have done that where one of them, the two of them were watching a show, and one of them somehow went ahead and then later got caught, and so anyway, that's how I don't get caught. Now, can my wife do this without me knowing? I don't know, and I don't want to know, but that's okay. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Went on that walk yesterday. Just oh, excuse me. Oh, let me grab some water. Grab some water. There we go. Had some water, and just been enjoying these days. Really, been productive. Hopefully the new book will be done by the end of this year. If you've never heard me talk about it, if this is your first time listening, hi, I'm Tommy. But my third book is called My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. and I have gone into the first 5 chapters and have started that editing process. And I have 5 more chapters to go and then write 2 more chapters. So my goal is to have 12 chapters for this book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., and to have the book published by the end of this year. That is my goal. I'm done playing. Done playing. It's time to get that book out in the world, okay? And that's really it. I'm trying to think. It's not much to report. Luckily, you can't hear. We're having a major windstorm right now, and behind our house is green space. And if you've ever seen on Instagram, the Instagram handle Blending Family. If you've never seen, I've put pictures out there of our backyard, and it backs up to green space. Well, behind the green space now is construction, and they're building some housing, some apartments. And today, with the construction and all the dirt, right before I started recording, I could taste the dirt. I can feel the dirt coming into the house. So there you go. All right, let's talk about our guest, Michael Daniels. Again, he is the creator of the app called Fayr. And on this episode, like I said, he was on the show Planet of the Apps. And if you're a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan like I am, he was on it, and so was Gwyneth Paltrow. And Gwyneth Paltrow really saw something in the app, and so she is on his board. She is part of the app. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Anyway, Gwyneth Paltrow. What else do we talk about? So Michael's in Florida. He did spend some time being homeless. A little stressful there, being homeless during his divorce, and you'll hear about that. What else? I mentioned the 20% off blending. Please utilize this app. It is really cool. So what is the app about? And you're going to hear about it, but for co-parenting, for both sides to really have some transparencies, we've had Decomply on Marco Muniz, and now we have Fayr app. And with co-parenting, like I said, you have to have transparency. You have to have the ability for both co-parents to, be able to handle, the finances, to have ways of making sure that when I say, hey, I'm at your house at this time dropping off the kids, I'm here, you're not here, well, how do you keep track of that? And with Fayr, we talk about that. With Michael Daniels, we talk about that. We also talk about, not just the time stamping, but he is going to be coming up with an enhancement for both co-parents to have the medical information. Now, he does talk about in this episode that the information is encrypted. I mean, encrypted. And you'll hear how he found the people to create this app. And this wasn't just, some random people on Craigslist saying, hey, can you build an app? It's like, hey, dude, sure. Let me just wait until my mom gets done with the microwave and I can build you an app. So that's not how it is. He went big time with this app. So there you go. Super excited, again, for you to get a discount, 20% off, when you sign up with the Fayr app using the word blending. BLENDING. All right. There you go. Last story. You've heard him on this podcast. I've been on his podcast. My dear friend, Johnny Nomad, he is working on his next book, and I'm super excited about this. It's not a personal development book. It's not a finance book. It is going to be a novella. The backdrop is New York City, where he's from. Anyway, when I was on my walk yesterday, he was talking to me, wanting some ideas as far as marketing goes with this book and making this something bigger. So if you've listened to this podcast before, you always hear me talk about the Terry Crews line. And if you haven't heard this, me talk about this, I heard an interview with Terry Crews. Terry Crews was talking about how he was first getting into acting, and people would get roles that he was up for, and he felt he was better at it. And then one day he had an aha moment. He had his epiphany, saying, "Well, that means if they're getting that role, there's another role out there open for me." So he came up with his success is their success. And one of the things Johnny said to me, "Well, we got to get you going. We got to do this." And I said, "Johnny, I'm living the philosophy of Terry Crews." And I said to him, I go, "Johnny, your success is going to be my success. So if these marketing ideas help you get to the next wave of where you should be in life, that is your success. And that makes me feel good. So your success is my success." And so, as I've mentioned, I am here for you. I would love to set up a 30-minute talk with you. How can I help you? You need coaching? I can coach you with mindset coaching. I can help you with the divorced dads coaching. So I'm here for you. Reach out to me at Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Let's set something up. I want to help as many people as I can. So there you go. So let's do it. I've talked long enough today. As Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. On this episode of Blending the Family, we have Michael Daniels, the founder of the app Fayr. Have a great day. Be kind to one another. Wash your hands. And just truly, truly understand the world of gratitude. And that's it. Peace out. Love your show. Bye-bye.
Warning. You're about to listen to a conversation, not an interview.
All right, Mike. First question out of the gate. When was the last time you were invited over to Gwyneth's house?
To Gwyneth's house?
Yeah.
I've never been to her house. Been to her office a few times. Never to her house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the app what was the pain point, Mike, that created this app? Heck, you don't even have a background in app design, right?
No, actually my background's in architecture, home building. That was my world ever, I guess 20 years of that field. But so yeah, no background in law, no background in technology, but I think just building homes and coming from architecture. In architecture, they always say, you're always looking for balance, symmetry, and harmony, and those kind of overriding sentiments and elements kind of went into the creation of the app as far as its UX UI, which I'm really big on, and yeah, and I really trying to achieve that.
How did you get on Planet of the Apps? I'm curious about that.
Oh yeah, it's kind of a cool story. Like it's funny because it was like 4th of July weekend, and I'd had this idea to create this app for a while, and there's so many things that went on in my personal life that was just constantly eating away at me, and the stress of constantly being challenged and being accused of falsifying this, that, or the other. And I just wanted some way to create something that was going to be incontestable. And it was funny. I was down on the water with my cousin and a friends, and I said, I'd already priced it out. It was going to be like $112,000 to build this thing, and I'm like, man, I've been a successful home builder, brought myself back from really a bad, almost, homeless situation. I was living out of my car for 5 months at one point. So I'm like, man, if I'm going to burn $112,000, a lot of ways I could do this. But they said, man, you're passionate about this. You're always talking about it. And it's something that is a huge pain point for you. Why don't you just go ahead and do it? So, I had contacted the same people who built Citibank's app, because I didn't know anything about the industry, and I just know that when you try to go cheap, it always ends up being expensive. So I just said, okay, I'm just going to go for the guys who know what they're doing, and yeah, I and thank goodness I did, because when Apple was looking for contestants to be on their show, who did they go out and contact? They contacted the biggest, most reputable app developers in the Silicon Valley. And fortunately, because I had contracted this one company, Apple approached them and they said, do you have anybody building some interesting apps? We're producing this show. And they said, yeah, we know this guy out of South Florida. He's got this app. You may want to just reach out to him and see if he's interested. And so it's kind of lucky there. It's because of that they considered me. And of course, I didn't know at the time, but they had like 10,000 applicants, and of the 10,000,
Oh my gosh, that many.
yeah. Well, that's just how many they put out a broad net just trying to collect people. They said they had thousands and thousands of them. And of that, they narrowed us down to 100. And of the 100, we had to go down this escalator. You've got 1 minute. It's very daunting because, none of us, most of us anyway, had never been on TV before. And I was up there with some heavy hitters, man, like the CEO of BuzzFeed was there and pitching. And I was thinking, man, I'm so outclassed here. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to make it. These people cruise at an intellectual stratosphere that I could never hope to touch. But anyways, go down this escalator, and I was watching some people go down, and they'd have like 4 greens, because each one, you have to have at least 1 green after your 1 minute initial pitch. And if you have all reds, then you're out. But if you at least have 1 green, you can continue. Well, I had 2 greens and 2 reds, and I'm thinking, oh man, I'm screwed here, because I've seen people with 4 greens and they lost them all, and they were gone. So I went down 2 greens, 2 reds, and I got to continue talking for about 25 minutes. And after that, I'd converted the 2 reds into 2 greens, and boom. So I was one of 20 people, 20 apps that actually got partnerships. So it's pretty cool to be narrowed down from 100 to 20. That was a pretty exciting time for me to make it. But yeah, that's how I got on. And then I met with Gwyneth many times after that. Like I kept going back. We'd go to her office and we pound out certain things. She helped me a lot with the UX UI, giving it a little softer. Just some of the verbiage, that I would use sounded too litigious, so she's like, you need to tone that down and make it more relatable to people. And so she has some good input, and it's been beneficial.
Did she use the word uncoupling a lot?
Oh, conscious uncoupling. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it was a book called Conscious Completion that she was a part of its creation. So I actually had to read that book prior to meeting with her. It's pretty great. Honestly, it's hard to rip your heart out, put it on a shelf, and go at things in an amicable way, because most of the time people feel deeply hurt. There's always one party for sure who feels deeply hurt over something, and they feel like they're losing. It's the matters of the heart. When you think about it, this is the only area of life that you can be in a civil suit with another human being and have to go on communicating with that person for years to come. And that's a tough thing to do. So consciously uncoupling it's that exercise of using your your prefrontal cortex rather than your limbic system.
Wow, that was way over my head, but
oh, was it? Well, that's what differentiates us from animals, is we're not we have the ability to think to think rationally, and to think through just our carnal impulses, and so that prefrontal cortex is what causes us to be able to be different than regular animals that are completely governed by their emotions and whatnot. But it's difficult. That's something you have to exercise.
We can get off the topic of Gwyneth, but I was just curious because since she's on your board, and you talk on the website about her being a part of helping you build this app. So who these days is using the app? I mean, obviously, divorced, but I mean, is this more of, are men starting to use this app before the ladies, or are the ladies starting to use the app before the men?
I would say, I haven't done enough study on my user base as right now, but I do see that more women, the ones who reach out, we call this B2B, B2C. It's actually pretty good information for people to learn. It's either, so business to consumer, that's the kind of marketing you do when you're just trying to reach the general public, right? And then you have business to business is when we deal with law firms and judiciaries and this sort of thing. So clearly, when I deal with judges or attorneys or magistrates or guardians and this and mediators, they'll write it into settlement agreements for both parties. So they're both using it, right? But it seems to be more women are looking for these kind of resources than men, generally speaking. Men, I think men just deal with things a little differently, and but I won't say that across the board. That's just not fair to say, really. I think it's a case by case thing. But I right now I would say more women reach out and look for tools like this than men do.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I would be curious to see, your user base, who's initiating creating the account. Is it the male or female? But it's like you said, we're all wired differently, and
Mhm.
for me personally, I think it was um, a sense of out of sight, out of mind. With a
Mhm.
lot of what goes on between you and your former spouse trying to co-parent, and uh, I just think that for me personally, again, it was I don't want to deal with this, but my former spouse was always the one, sending me the spreadsheets, sending me the bills, this and that, and I just go, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of men. I think a lot of men just they're just kind of like, oh, they just get exhausted from it. They feel like it's there's a lot of conflict there, and they just want to, they don't want to engage with it. They just want to turn away from it. Whereas maybe women are more willing to dive into that conflict. I don't know, but I got to be careful with what I say, because again, it's really case by case. There's so many situations.
Well, no, I think, as men, we don't like to admit
Hmm.
defeat or failure, or asking directions. And so when it comes to, a situation where you're going through a divorce, and you just get to the point where I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody's help. I really don't want to reach out to my former spouse for help. I can do this all by myself, which is not true. And I think women have a better community. They have a better network. They're more, um, you know, verbal about how they're feeling, and are okay for asking for help.
Yeah, definitely. That is the truth. I think there are certain societal expectations, and I think men, unfortunately, we suppress our feelings. And this conversation, I watched a podcast on actually a TED Talk. A really smart guy, Peter Shankman. I actually met him up in New York a couple months ago, and he um, he was talking about how it was about ADHD, autism. He kind of has that sort of specialty and background, and he was saying, when two little children, when they're little, a son and a daughter, that, men need affection, need love, need to express their feelings just as much as women, but yet societally we're expect to be these. What's praised in a man is his ability to be an alpha male, his ability to be these terms that make us have to suppress our feelings. But man, men, little boys, they need hugs. They need to be shown affirmation and affection, adulations, just as much as anyone else. But it's just so it's sad to see so many men who suppress this stuff, and it just eats them up inside. I mean, I think it's one of the big contributing factors as to why men die so much earlier. It's just they're more prone to bottling this stuff up, and it manifests itself in very toxic ways in other areas of their lives. And so I'd like to see more men just go ahead and admit, weakness and vulnerability and need to get it out there. And these support groups, such as you've created here, it's really important. It's really important that men utilize these resources to really help them through these things. Because, we're emotional beings as well.
Right. And I know, for example, when you and I were talking last week about, you know, as far as, manliness and manhood, one of the things that I was taught very ingrained, and God bless my dad, was don't be afraid to show emotion. Don't be afraid to, show that you can hug another man. And I know it doesn't my it's not my son's comfort zone when I'm first picking him up or taking him home, and the first thing and last thing is always I hug him, and I know he's not comfortable with that. And I stem that from because his mom is not like that. She is very stoic, and um I just I fear for our kids that are afraid to show, especially the boys, are afraid to show love like
Hmm.
that.
Well, I wonder. Yeah, I'm sure there are some people who are more comfortable with it than others, but I think more often than not, if people need it and they just don't get it, particularly men. Look at the interaction between women. I mean, if a woman's going to go to the bathroom, her friend's going with her. When was the last time you saw a couple guys say, "I'm going to the bathroom"? Hey, man, I'm going with you. Like, you just don't see that, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had the opportunity to live in Italy for 5 years, and I noticed the cultural differences between men there. I mean, men will walk arm in arm, two friends. They'll walk, just kind of like link arms, and they'll walk down the street and take what they do a passeggiata together. They'll take a walk, then they greet each other. They do the two kisses on a cheek, and it was really interesting for me to observe the first time I got there and seeing men interact like this. But there's nothing sexual about it or anything like that. It's
No,
just that our culture in America just did not evolve that way, and I think it's in some ways to our detriment. Because when we go through hard times, we feel like we just have to bottle it up, stay quiet about it, and suppress it. But it hurts us, and we've got to talk about it because I know for myself. I mean, when I went to the divorce, it's a point of failure. It's a point of shame. And a lot of questions get asked, assumptions get made. People assume, "Oh, you must be a cheater" or something like this, and so I just found myself becoming a recluse. I stayed away from everybody, and it felt like a failure. And I was really, really down. And I just kind of cut certain friends off because I just didn't want to have the conversation. I just wanted to avoid talking about it. And then, of course, when these things you feel like you're constantly being clawed at, and you're being attacked all the time for either money or being blamed for your kid's sick. It's just like they'll find a reason to blame. I mean, you know, sometimes an ex can blame you for AIDS in Africa. They'll blame you for the rising price of rice in China. I mean, anything, they'll blame you for everything. And that just becomes just exhausting. And yeah, I had nowhere to turn, but for me, it was kind of cool diving into building this app because I was able to just put a lot of my just my creative mind involved and said, okay, how can I try to mitigate some of the problems here? Because improving communication, and making it more clear and incontestable I mean, that's the best thing you can do to improve any situation. I don't care what you're doing in life. You make communication better, the process is going to get more efficient and less contentious.
so yeah, let's talk about the app. So how did you come up with the app as far as the different
Hmm.
features, and also w- when you're reaching out to the guys who developed the Citigroup app, how did you find
Yeah.
them?
Well, again, all I knew is that I didn't know anything. That's what I knew. I knew I didn't know anything about. I knew a little bit about law at that point because gone through this. I mean, I'd gone to so many court motions and 2 years worth of stuff. And I took meticulous notes every single night. I was reconciling daily logs for time sharing. I'd record a little pad of paper. I'd have to record when I dropped the kids off, when I picked them up, because I wanted to calculate the exact amount of time I had them and be able to prove it. But I really couldn't prove it because by the time I hit a court motion, she'd just say, oh, he made all of that up. And I'd have all these detailed logs that I kept: expenses, time sharing, pickups, drop offs, my messages. I'd communicate only in emails because emails are admissible in court, but text messages are not. But the funny thing is that she'd respond in text messages, and then I had to go pay $20 for some funky app to to transfer all of that data in order to print it off. It was just a mess to try to keep up with all of this stuff. So I mean, those were my experiences, and in finding a company, I just said, okay, top app companies in the Silicon Valley, because I knew that that was where all the big apps were being created. And then I saw, I knew Citibank had just come up with an app. I knew they did, and it was beautiful. I mean, the way they did it, the whole, and I really wanted the expense feature to be on point, because both parties are always convinced that the other one owes them money. It's true. They'll both be like,
Yes.
man, I just spent
Gosh.
this, and this, and because we're really good about keeping a mental inventory of our own contributions, but seldomly do we acknowledge the contributions made by someone else, right? That's just in our nature. So I wanted the expense feature to be particularly good. So when I saw that Citibank had just produced this new app, I went and found those guys, and it wasn't that hard to do, because when you're a company and you scored a contract like Citibank, you're happy to tout those accolades. So I found them, and yeah, I contacted them, and they were pricey. They were expensive. But, initially, anytime anybody's developing an app, you first develop it in iOS and you work out all your bugs there, and then you build it in Android once. Because if you try to do it simultaneously, you'll be making little switching gears and changing everywhere, and it'll cost you a ton of money. So yeah, we spent probably 9 months just pounding out every little tiny facet of how to put this thing together, and it was a really interesting process. I mean, I learned a lot about technology during that time, and it was I tell you, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm 40 years old now, and it was interesting to reinvent myself. I guess I was 37 at the time, but never thought I'd get into something like this. But I'm glad I did, and it's really rewarding knowing that like I know I built homes for a long time, but I still view myself as building homes. I'm just in a different way. It's not a departure from what I've done. I'm still helping people create happier home life if it's more peaceful and you're not wasting money.
Did you bootstrap this?
I did. Yeah, I did. I sunk my life savings into it, because yeah, I've sunk a lot of my money into it. Yeah, but when you believe in something, man, you just got to go for it. And I understand that a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's a pretty dumb way to do things. You should go out there and go gamble with somebody else's money." But I'm not the kind of person that some sort of investment firm would get behind, because I have no experience in the field. So when they're betting on things, they're not just betting on the horse; they're betting on the jockey, and the jockey's never ridden a horse before. That's typically not where you go. So
Yeah, pony
so
rides.
yeah.
Pony rides don't count.
Pony rides don't count. So yeah, I didn't even attempt though, but I knew enough to know that. I mean, I knew that the likelihood of me getting funding out of the gate to do something like this, I didn't want to do. And by doing so, all you're doing is finding a boss, because they would easily eat up 51% of your company, and then you could get fired from the very company that you started. So yeah, I didn't want to do that. So I bootstrapped it. I sure did.
So when the app finally came to fruition, again, so how did you know what the app needed as far as the financial piece, the time tracking piece, the communication piece?
Well, I tell you what, they were just all the four logs that I kept. I kept a log for pickups and drop-offs, because that would become important time stuff if I ever got taken back to court for a modification for child support, right? So if I kept a good log of when I picked them up, when I dropped them off, I'd be able to calculate how many days out of the year I had the kids versus how many days out of the year she had the kids, and that way I'd have a log for that, right? And then, of course, expenses. Every time you take the kids to, either medical, uncovered medical, dental, school supplies, lunch money, medical insurance, well, I would cover insurance, but anything like that. I mean, I wanted to keep a record of anything I was spending, to show that, I'm doing my part as a parent. So, and then obviously communication was always a problem because the text messaging versus emails. It was very difficult keeping up with that, and then of course the co-parenting calendar, just trying to communicate pickups and when they had events at school or whatever. So these were the four critical areas. Those were the four features that I really executed on, because they were the ones I was keeping logs on. And but since then, I mean, we've added a bevy of other things. I mean, because I've just learned from other people. They've messaged in and said, "Hey, it would be great if it did this as well." And so we added like a private journal. We added that only you can view, and you can keep things. It's something that only you can see. So if there's something that escalated and you want to keep a record of it, anything you put in the private journal is only for your eyes. Anything you put in the file vault, such as like a birth certificate, if you want to have both records of that, if you want to, like, the kid's blood type, or you want to have information, schools, like a child profile thing, basically. So the file vault can be seen by both parties. And then we built the app in Spanish, and we did we did several other features. If you go on the website, you can see them all. But I just wanted to at least focus on the four that were most important. And I had a particular event that happened in my personal life that just blindsided me, and that was really the catalyst to get me to get going on this. I had a time sharing schedule. I was supposed to drop the children off on a Saturday morning, 43 miles away from me. So I get up, get the kids ready. I drive 43 miles down there, and I'm waiting in the driveway at my ex's place, and no one's there. No one's picking up the phone. No one's answering the door. No one's responding to messages. So I'm like, after about 30 minutes of this, I said, "Oh man, the heck with this. I'm going home. I don't know what happened." So I drive 43 miles back home. And upon arriving home, I get a call from my attorney, who had just been contacted by her attorney, saying, "You're in violation you're in contempt of court," and this sort of thing. And I said, "No, I was there." And they said, "Well, you have no way of proving it. And
Oh,
the material fact is that the kids were not dropped off." And so it would have been completely up to a judge's subjectivity as to whether I was lying or she's lying. And so fortunately, I had taken the toll roads. And so after a while
oh,
about it, I was able to pull my toll records, and show that I had exited a toll around that time, about a mile from the house. And so that was able I was basically, acquitted, so to speak, of this particular accusation. Um, but what if I had taken any other road? I would have had no proof. If I had just happened to take a different road, and I didn't pay the toll, well, then I would have been screwed, and I would have gone to court, and it would have been up to the judge as to whether or not I was in contempt of court. And that kind of stuff really prevents you from sleeping at night. It affects your whole life. It'll affect the way you work. It'll affect everything, man. It's difficult when you know that you're going to be and sitting in front of a judge. I don't know if how other people feel about it, but for me, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And so I wanted to create this feature, that our geo check-in feature. It's not a tracker. I can't track where my other person is, but if I choose to document my current location, I can do it. I can time, date, and stamp it with a picture. I can do it with my kids there, and it is just incontestable. Your co-parent would get a push notification instantly to their phone that says, "Oh, he just checked in. Here are the coordinates right there on a map in front of your house." It's not like Facebook's check-in feature that you could check yourself in at the Eiffel Tower right now, right? This is where you are. You cannot manipulate it. And that would have been it. But because I didn't have that day, even though I was there and proved that I was there, it still cost me $800 in legal fees that day.
oh
Just
my,
to have yeah, just to have those people go back and forth and argue, and $800 I got charged. So, I mean, out of the blue, when you least expect it, when you think everything's fine and you got settlement, out of nowhere, you can get hit with an $800 fee. So, that's why I just tell people, look, I mean, the app runs, says $79 for a year, or you can pay monthly if you want. But $79 a year? Are you kidding me? That's the price of a Starbucks coffee a month. For that, you can rest assured that you are going to save yourself countless dollars, and you'll mitigate countless dollars of expenses that can arise out of nowhere. I mean, all it takes is one. All it takes is one argument, and a single hour of a paralegal to put all of this stuff together for you would cost $90 to $120 an hour. That's just the paralegal's time. And so it's very worth it to stay on top of this stuff and just live knowing that you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I when you're talking about sitting in front of a judge, the thought popped in my head when I had to go sit in front of a judge because my former spouse wanted to move out of state and take our son. And financially, I maxed out my credit card. Had to borrow money from uh, my aunt. Had to borrow money from my current wife and last wife, I want to mention. It's insane. It is insane. Um, oh my gosh, as I'm sitting here reliving, sitting at that desk, and it's one of those situations that it's gosh, I'm gonna start crying because you're sitting there in the stand, or here's what I'm sitting in the stand, and I had this binder that I created to show my time with my son and the things we had done, together, be it, uh, when I was coaching hockey and pictures of that and whatever else I had. You're sitting on the stand to prove you're a good dad. And I'll never forget once that day was over and the judge said it ruled in our favor that, there's no way that as he said, there's no way this child is leaving this state. And I'll never forget, I got up and I went outside to hug my wife, and I'm just bawling, bawling, and I
Mm.
couldn't get any words out. And part of it was I was drinking I was drinking so much coffee and water at the desk. I just had to get up and really pee. And I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't get any words out to say the verdict. And I just booked to the bathroom and I came back out and she goes, "What happened?" I said, we won. So, uh, you know, when you're talking, Mike, about having to shell out another $800, and I know you have to toe a very fine line on this, but family court, in my view, is such a racket. And I will be the first to say this too. I will go to the highest mountain here in Colorado and I'll say, not only is it a racket, but it's still old fashioned when it comes to men's dads' rights. So that's me on my soapbox.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you. I'll share some interesting stats with you. I don't know if people know this, but I'm sure they don't. But it costs the U.S. tax dollar $112 billion a year to run the family courts. 40% of children today are being born out of wedlock. There are nearly 60 million co-parents raising kids under the age of 18 today. And, this is just a really, really big, really massively, this subject affects so many lives, but it's also something that is too painful for a lot of men to even talk about. And so, we do. We can all commiserate with each other. When I hear you talk about that, I can say, man, I know the pain. And the $800, yeah, it hurts. It hurts because I was the same way, man. I racked up credit cards. My credit score went to hell, like everything, man. It's just really, really stressful. And so, when you have groups like this, and the system isn't trying to get better, because I mean there's $11 billion spent a year. That's the annual family law industry revenue. That's the amount of money that gets spent on family law professionals every year. $11 billion. So, it's like there's not much incentive for people in the positions to make a difference to actually make a difference. The it's a big industry, and the lawyers get about a third of your net worth, and oftentimes they end up bankrupting people. It's the number one reason that sends families into the poverty scale. I mean, below the poverty line, that is the number one reason. Divorce drops you down there. And actually, the two biggest things a child can suffer from are poverty and divorce. I mean, those are the two things that children are psychologically suffer from. So, the fact that guys like you are out there trying to make it better, and Fayr is it's my sincere effort to try to make something a little better. I think it's an important work we're doing.
Talk about, though, you have a lot of uh, lawyers, court systems that are they, I don't necessarily say recommending, but are requiring to use Fayr, correct?
Yeah, initially I thought, oh, attorneys are going to be my worst enemy. They're not going to want this because it's going to limit what they can bill, right? I mean, a paralegal putting all this stuff together, that's what Fayr is really doing for you. It's allowing you to document in real time as life is happening, and so that clearly lessens the amount of time a paralegal is going to have to put this stuff together. But I got to tell you, I did not meet this with a lot of times attorneys, they don't like losing cases. It's bad for their brand. And so, and most parents that their clients, they don't lose because they're bad parents. They lose because they're bad documenters. And reconstructing that
Mm.
audit trail is very frustrating, and they're constantly chasing them down, and a lot of times it's impossible to reconstruct it. So I find that attorneys actually they write it into settlement agreements, or once they have a client come on board, some attorneys say, all right, this is part of my process. I want you to download and start documenting with Fayr, because it's going to show that you're making the sincere effort to communicate constructively. And the judge just wants to see that you're going to be assumed to be the more responsible parent if you're the one who's using a co-parenting app and doing everything you can to try to make things better. A judge is going to say, well, this one's using the co-parenting app and they sent you an invite to join to have the communication completely clear, the lines of communication here, and you're going to tell me you didn't do it. And so it's a good faith gesture to use this. And so the courts now are mandating it in cases. So in preparation for, during, and post legal proceedings, people are using Fayr, and it's just helped people a lot. It is an acronym. It stands for Family Advocacy is Your Responsibility, FAYR, and yeah, I think it's your responsibility to yourself, to your children, to try to be fair and try to and try to keep those lines of communication transparent.
Talk about one of the upcoming, um, what do you call it? What do you call upgrades to Fayr? Your Fayr points.
Um, one of our upcoming, some things I have to kind of keep a lid on, some of the big ones. Some of our features that we're building out, and we do have competitors that, quite frankly, a lot of them have copied me. I was the first to come out with that geo check-in feature, and since then, that my competitors have copied that particular feature. At least two of my, three of my competitors have copied it. I pride myself in being kind of like a trailblazer with a lot of this stuff, and we do have some big things in queue for the app. I think one of the bigger ones, I mean, well, not bigger ones, but one of the ones I think I could share is that we are going to create, especially after this pandemic, like a lot of people are not even sure what their blood types are and things like this, because certain blood types are more resilient to this pandemic than others. At least studies are now showing. And I thought, I need to create, right now, I don't have a dedicated child profile feature. And so what I want to do is have when you fill out your child profile, that way both parents will, at a time like this, that they'll have access to their medical history could be inputted in here, as well as just the information. I don't have times to go places and they ask me what time of the day, how much did your child weigh at birth, how long were they, this sort of all this information. I don't have it, or they'll ask, the student ID information for your kid. So I want to create a really dedicated, very nice child profile that you can have right down to, what classes are they taking this year? What are the teachers' names? What are the teachers' contact information? So all of that can be in the app. It'll be shared with your co-parent, and and you'll be able to have that on tap whenever you need it. Because right now people are going scrambling trying to find logins for all of these online classes that they have. And a lot of the kids have had it, but now they don't. Now they really need it. It's not just something you use every once in a while. So we're just trying to make that really high tech, really good feel. So that's one thing that we're going to do. The bigger project we're working on, I really can't talk about it just yet, but it's going to be pretty revolutionary once we get it done.
Well, one of the things that you've mentioned, which is really important, is you were talking about the mental inventory that we do,
Hmm.
but at the same time, the ability to timestamp everything is so key. Um, I mean, especially like you said, we're really bad at tracking the information, the documentation. Um, the like you were just saying, the medical stuff. I can't tell you how many times I had asked my former uh, for medical information, but it seemed like she wanted to keep it a secret.
Hmm.
So it sounds like with you being able to build out um, that type of file will really help. I mean, especially when, you know, worst case scenario, your child is at home with you, but they're under your former's, medical and something happens. But at least, with the
Hmm.
app, with the Fayr app, you have that at your fingertips.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, proper co-parenting means you're trying to give all of the most relevant, important information, provide it, make it available to the other parents, so that in the event that they need it, they have it right there. Like you just mentioned, that medical is important, especially right now, and to have that information concrete right there for you. It's going to be really helpful to people, and I'm really excited to get that done. We're well on our way, but it's going to be really great that people will know, who's the primary care doctor. You'll have their telephone number right there. You can even leave notes from the last visit, uh, so you can go look at those notes. If one parent took them to the doctor, they can just quickly type in notes, and it's always there. You can track it, log it, and forget it. Like, it's just there for whenever you need it into the future. And it also just, it just will show. It'll just show, if you ever end up in, and I keep talking about people ending up in these legal disputes, but hopefully we avoid any of that. But if you do, I got to tell you, it's just so difficult to remember what the particulars were a year and a half ago, and those particular details can make a big difference in any one of these motions. I mean, that people go to court for motions for contempt, sometimes falsely accused of. You have motions for modification, contempt, and enforcement. Right? Those are the three big ones. So I tell you guys, like, it can't stress to you how important it is to document documenting is the single most important thing you can do. And not assume that, hey, I'm in the clear, like, oh, and it doesn't need to be contentious. I mean, in fact, if you look at the user interface, which that's my bread and butter, is just how things look and feel. That's my whole background. And I wanted to create something that was going to be psychologically conflict diffusing to the user. So soft color tones, casual fonts, rounded edges on everything. Like, everything is just meant to make you feel like this is not contentious. And anyway, it's my hope that I can help people. And we also want to let people know that, you're putting this personal information in here. We do not sell user data, so everything is completely confidential. We will never sell it to third-party users. A lot of apps, that's the way they monetize. Most apps can monetize about 50 cents per user per month. So, but they're doing that by selling your private information to third parties, and we never do that. That's what the subscription pays for. That's where we're able to run our business model. Is that subscription guarantees that your user information, all the information about your children, this is your private life. Sometimes there's just incendiary things being said about you that aren't true. Well, none of that's ever going to be shared. Just to make that clear.
I'm happy you mentioned that, Mike, because that, like you were saying, you're putting your kids' information in there, and you don't want that to be hacked and stolen. So again, I'm happy you mentioned that. One of the things um, I keep going back and forth with things that some common sense that my attorney had brought up, and it's the whole calendar and knowing when you had your kids, when you picked them up, when you dropped them off, and like you were just saying, the 3 Ds of life: document, document, document. And I got on my high horse a while back talking about the difference between divorce families and traditional families, and they just don't. A traditional family just doesn't see you know the horror stories that a lot of us have gone through, and it's just I really wish that they could look behind the curtain and see how crazy things can be, including having to write down when you picked up your kids, when you dropped them off. uh, that is probably for me, for your app, that would probably be the biggest takeaway, is probably uh, other than the financial piece. I think the calendar is so key.
Oh yeah, I mean the calendar and of course the communication. I mean with Fair, as it works just like your iOS messaging. So as you're texting back and forth within the app, it's just as admissible in court as an email is. So you have all the ease of text messaging with all the admissibility of emails. But you're right. The co-parenting calendar, actually, it's the default screen. So when you open the app, it always goes to the co-parenting calendar first because it is what we engage with the most, and it keeps detailed track records. So your days will be in one color, your co-parents' days will be in another color, and you're both in control of your days. And so if I want to release one of my days, I just click on the day. I can request to release the day to my co-parent. She would instantly get a notification to her phone, and she could either accept or deny. If she accepts it, it changes to her color, and it does not switch back unless she releases it again. And so this keeps everything really, really just clean cut. So when they try to change the record on you in the future, you can leave notes there too, communication on that specific transaction you're doing, so to speak. Transaction in a day that you're releasing. Well, a judge later on can see, oh, well, the app tells me exactly how many days, hours, minutes I had the kids, how many days, hours, and minutes she had the kids. And you can see all the correspondence there too. And the judge will be able to say, well, look, you released it to him on July 12th at 4:30 p.m. and you accepted it 5 minutes later. And yeah, there was the correspondence. So there's just no ambiguity to it all anymore. And that's why, yeah, it's so important. And we give you monthly reports actually. So every month, as you move along through the app, we'll send you a report the first of the month that says, this is how many days you had the kids, and this is just to keep just on your mind. We're not giving you, it's not a I got you thing. We just want to let you know what you've done that month, how much money you spent, and how many things you logged, how many communications you've had. And that monthly report is very helpful. And all of that's, I mean, it's all included. I mean, there's no extra price for any of this stuff. It's just something we send to you every day, kind of like a progress report.
Not to put you on the spot, Mike, but any positive stories from Fair that come to mind?
Yeah, actually, quite a few. I actually, it's funny. I have some pro athletes who use Fair, and some of them have become pretty good friends of mine. They'll call me every once in a while, talk about certain things, or get advice on. So a lot of people call me these days, ask for a good attorney who's fair with them, who's not going to, run the bus over them, and I've become pretty good friends with them. They tell me certain stories about how certain things they'd always be conflict things. They'd always arise, or one their co-parent wouldn't believe them when they said that they um, were there on time. Well, now that they show up and they just ping themselves, and it's a matter of record, that it completely annihilated that from then on out. Like the geo check-in feature is the one that really I get the most I get the most praise on, because it is true. They'll say you never show up to school on time, or you never show up to parent teacher conference on time. Well, when you can show up there, and as soon as you park in the parking lot, boom, you can just hit it, document yourself. Well, that's it. It's time, date, and stamped. You're there, and it's incontestable. And so I've got a lot of people told me that that's really mitigated a lot of problems for them. And then maybe the expense feature too. At a glance, if I'm recording all my receipts, I can take pictures of my receipts, and it just boom pops them up and records the amounts, and it'll show you in a pie chart since inception, year to date, any particular month, whatever you choose. It'll show that the pie charts, shifting in real time, and say, I'm spending 52%, you're at 48% of expenses, and yeah, I mean, I think that solves a lot of problems for people too. I've heard, especially I've done podcasts with people, and then their listenership will message in, and they'll say, hey, this thing's been a great app. It's really helped me and my co-parent communicate better, and so those comments have been reposted. And we have a good score in the App Store. I think we're like 4.6 stars, and that's in the world of apps. It's great, because most of the time the only people who ever leave you a review are people who are pissed, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Most of the time, the happy people just shut up and move along with their lives.
Yeah.
It's like kind of unfortunate, but knowing that we're still in the fours is a pretty good compliment,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you go to a restaurant, you have bad service, you're all over Yelp. But if everything goes great, rarely do you hear about it.
Yeah, it's sad too, isn't it? Because I mean, people sit there, worst meal ever, and you're like, man, that guy who started that little restaurant, I mean, he put his whole heart and soul into it. He sunk his entire life savings into building that thing, and it's tough building a business. And then somebody comes along and does just leaves you, a comment like that, worst ever. And it's hard. I mean, just from the perspective of somebody who's started a business and literally sunk my entire life savings into it, boy, you really appreciate the people who take the time to say, hey, this is a good app. Thank you for putting forth the effort. But people don't think that way. That's just the reality of life, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. So you want to talk about a special offer?
Yeah. Just for this listenership that you have here, anybody listening to this can input the code. If you go to befayr.com, that's BEFAYR.com, or you just go to fayr.com. There'll be a link to go sign up. Just input the code blending, and you'll get to 20% off any of our subscription options. So we have 3-year, 1 year, and monthly. And so obviously it's better deal if you go 3 years. It would come out to for 3 years, it'd come out to $199 for 3 years of usage. So anyway, but just input the code blending, and that's at befayr.com. If you have any questions, I mean, I like when people email me personally. I'm at michael@fayr.com, and if you have any suggestions, I mean, I am one person from one set of life experiences, and I love learning from other people, because it just makes it better. And that's what I'm really aiming to do, is make the best co-parenting app there's ever been.
Is it case sensitive?
It is not, it's not case sensitive. So, just lowercase, uppercase, whatever you want to put in, just blending, put it in, and you'll get 20% off.
Last question, Mike. You ready?
Yeah.
What has changed in your life these past 12 months?
Ooh. I would say the last 12 months, I've been able to live in the moment with my kids.
Ooh.
I'm able to be emotionally present in their lives, more so than before. I'd say that, and that's a direct result out of not worrying about these kind of litigious things that used to pop up in my face all the time. I used to worry about, oh no, this is going to get me. And I think being emotionally present in my children's lives and not living with an anxious state of mind.
And I'm sure you're sleeping better in a home versus sleeping in a car.
Yeah, I absolutely am sleeping better now. I should send you a link to my audition video to Planet of the Apps, and I go over that whole thing and the whole experience, and use a lot of images, And it is, I tell you, sleeping in my car for 5 months, you feel like a complete loser. And but it was a long road back, and we'll see where life takes me next. I'm sad for a lot of people out there right now. There's just a lot of people right now who imagine you're going through these difficult family struggles, and bad economic times actually breed divorces, a peak in divorces more than anything else. Finances are the number one reason. So there are going to be a lot of people splitting up and a lot of families getting hurt as a cause of this.
Well, the other thing too is, I was reading, for example, like in South Africa, they said nobody's leaving their houses, and
Mhm.
they mentioned, especially when it came to co-parenting. So if it was your time to take your kids back to your spouse, guess what? They're still with you until this 21-day lockdown happened. And so, again, going back to the difference between the world of divorce and the world of traditional family, traditional family doesn't have to, deal with, you know, the sending off and giving back to the kids. And so now I'm sure there's going to be, well, you had our kids longer because, well, hold on, that was out of my control. Don't blame me for this. So yeah, it's a different world right now when it comes to co-parenting.
Yeah, well, depending on the state, and I guess, yeah, it sounds like South Africa's pretty. I mean, they're taking a pretty big hard line and extreme. But even where I am here in South Florida, they have a, you know, I don't know what they're calling it, but something about staying put or hunkering down or whatever they're terming it. But yeah, I mean, my kids have been with me now for 3 weeks in a row, which has been great for me.
Oh yeah.
But I can acknowledge, I mean, children need the time spent with both parents, and so I'm going to be totally amenable to letting my co-parent have more time with them later on. And it's just a look. You got to go at things and try to be fair. Just be fair.
Yeah.
Like these are I mean, we don't want to just. I don't necessarily want to go 3 weeks without seeing my kids, but I'll come up with something where, once this mandate gets lifted, where maybe she has them 5 days, and then I'll have them, you know, 3 days, and then we'll do that until she catches up on the time. Because I mean, and that's the thing. Fayr will adjust for you. It'll show you, who's spending that time, and so we'll try to get back to 50-50, but we'll do it in a way that isn't like extreme.
Michael Daniels, founder of the Fayr app. Next time you see Gwyneth, just let her know that I'm actually a huge fan of Chris Martin. I love Coldplay, and so I don't know if she'll actually want to hear that, but maybe don't. But if you see Chris, how's that? If you see Chris, tell him Tommy says hi.
Yeah, I'll do that. She actually said that since getting divorced now, just the way they co-parent, she says they have the best relationship they've ever had, better now than ever when they were even married. So of course she's remarried
right
now, but yeah, I think they're doing a fabulous job with their two children. Apple and Moses, they're doing a good job with them.
Again, I'm a Coldplay fan. No, I think I'm gonna go listen to Alexa. Play some Coldplay for me, please.
To just play songs by Coldplay, you'll need to sign up for Amazon Music on
I'm not signing up for Amazon
which lets
Music.
you choose from over 50 million songs on this Echo Dot. It's free for 30 days.
Yeah.
Automatically
All I wanted was listen to some music.
Cancel anytime. Terms in the Alexa app.
That's a lot of information she's giving.
That's way too much. It's like earlier when you were talking to me, it was over my head. This is over my head.
Yeah.
And she hung up on me. Oh well. Mike, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hugs to your kids, but stay 6 feet apart when you hug them. And after this podcast interview, please go wash your hands.
Hey, Thomas, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. Do podcasts get ratings? Because that's kind of scary. Wait, please leave a rating and review, whether it's good, bad, in between. This guy's got to know. Yes, he's not the best looking guy in the world. But man, is he sweet. He's got soft skin. He's nice to snuggle with. Oh, wait, I didn't say that, did I?